Howdy folks, I'm Rebecca Jolly, the Jolly Alchemist, here today with a Neutrino forecast for Tuesday, the 14th of October, 2025. So here we are, we're beginning a whole new grouping. This grouping that we're looking at today, and of course through the course of the year we look at all the groupings, all 64. Now it is time for 32, straight up halvesies. Of course we're not halvesies in the time, but it's all dependent on the wheel, so that's what you get. So anyway, 32.1, we're looking at 32 in the sun and 42 in the earth. And then, of course, underneath that, we have still 60, 62, and 61. And those are attention to detail and understanding the mysteries of the universe. So 32, line 1 is conservation through attention to all aspects. So first let's talk about the cross, which is the right angle cross of the Maya. We're in the first line, so we're looking inward. It's very introspective. It's thinking about what is actually happening here in this new hexagram and considering that. And the gate 32 is called duration. And it's right here. It's what I say is continuity, the ability to stay stable through changes. And the thing that we learn by examining this first line is that we stay stable through changes by keeping track of the details, remembering what all the details are so that we don't jump into changes too quickly. This is really one of the most conservative gates that we have, but it's also got a knowledge inside of it that change is the only thing that's truly stable. And so it's like it knows that change needs to happen, but it wants to make sure that it happens slowly enough and with enough attention to detail that it's done properly. And Ra uses an example here of like when we discover a new tribe in the Amazon and they're living an ancient lifestyle, and we all of a sudden bring to them like pots and pans and mirrors and things that they're just not ready to have. It can really destabilize their society and lead to a break in their continuity. It endangers their whole entire life. And the way that they get out of it, if they do get out of it, is by capitalizing on their native culture, selling art from it or artifacts, or in some way keeping who they used to be in a time of rapid change. And that bit of conservationism, that continuity, is what makes it so that they can move forward and be successful. So it's an interesting that's going on there. And Ra does take a minute to explain sort of what's going on, because this is a very tribal energy we're talking about here. This is a tribal channel, this drive to succeed with its fear of failure. He takes a minute to explain really the whole material process and what's going on there. And I thought that was interesting and worth a look real quick. So he starts with gate 45, which is the owner of any company, the king or the queen, the one who's owning it but not necessarily running it. The one who's running it is gate 21. That would be the president or the seneschal, or the one who actually is doing the work of running the business. So this is the owner of the business. This is the one who's actually running the business. So this would be like the CEO. And then we come into the 26, where we're going to have this this head of sales, head of marketing, the marketing department here in 26. And 44 is going to be the personnel manager, seeing who needs to go into what place. And then it goes to the 32, where you have basically the financial officer, the person who's in charge of valuation. And that's a really important concept for this cross of the Maya, is valuation, knowing what things are worth. And Ra says that this is really all, it's very much about what the Maya is about. And of course, we have a lot of people who look down on the Maya. Oh, this life is just an illusion. It's nothing real. It's nothing, as if it wasn't real enough. But of course, those of us who live in it know that everything happens within the Maya. The Maya is where we do all of our stuff. The Maya is what we came to this. What we came to this life to actually uh, partake in. It's the game. It's the movie. So the Maya is cool. And we really should respect that. And the people who were born here know better than anyone else what that Maya is really about. It's about partaking, drinking deeply of the illusion while we're here, because that is what we're here to do. So I was going to leave this tomorrow, but real quick. I'll try to make it so that it's not such a long thing, but there is a lot to say. So people who carry this third version of the Cross of the Maya: Chris Bangle, Steve Coogan, Dwight Eisenhower, Michelle Foucault, Angela Lansbury, Rita Hayworth, Lee Iacocca, Arthur Miller, Oscar Wilde, Friedrich Nietzsche, and Bob Weir, one of my favorite people. And that's also, of course, leading to our tie today, because this is one of Jerry Garcia's ties from the Grateful Dead. He even has a signature on this one. And I chose it because, it's all sort of watery and nebulous. And the reason for that is because in the 32nd gate here, which we are studying in this whole grouping, it's the gate of the nose, smelling failure, but it's also the gate of our water processes, because it's through our water processes that we carry our memories. Memories are carried in water. And the 32nd gate has a real memory for what did not work. So that's what they're looking for. They're trying to recognize the patterns of what did not work so that they can invest properly in what will work, so that they don't have to be afraid of failure. That's their fear here in the 32nd gate. And they can have success, material success for the tribe, and help the money move forward, right? So for the rest of the process, what you have is the material officer here making the decisions of who's going to get money to be able to rise up and make things happen. And then on the other side of that, you have these 54s, people like me, people with ambition, who are always trying to push up, always trying to rise up. They're trying to get to be all the way up to CEO. In the material process, but that 32nd gate, that financial officer, is the one that they have to deal with to make that happen. So then the 32 will help the 54 sometimes, but they'll say, remember who it was who helped you, and I want a ticket to, I want a ticket to be on the front lines, or don't forget me when you rise up, kind of a thing. And they do. They get remembered when the 54s are allowed to rise and contribute to the material processes. I'm getting ready to move in with a 32, so that will be a very interesting energy for me to be exploring, especially because it's going to be completing a channel for me, and we're going to be looking at this nature of success as friends together. So, moving on. This 32 today does have an up arrow on it. That's the life-sustaining and respectful consideration of all aspects of a process to maintain the continuity of the community. So we are looking at an energy of being driven to succeed. So we will see these people here really, really wanting to bring things into the community through supporting someone else. Our Earth activation is happening in Gate 42. This is the channel of cyclical learning, and this is the ending part of the maturation cycle. So this is the pressure to complete things, the pressure to mature, and the line is called diversification, growth through expansion and diversification. So what's happening here is that 42nd gate is looking for surplus resources in order to be able to have a surplus emotional experience. This is, of course, in our collective circuitry, and in the collective abstract specifically. So it's really about sharing experiences, sharing, being able to build up the energy to have the experience. And it's also important to remember this is a sacral gate. So what's happening is this sort of scale or spectrum, there's the word, from diversification, and that's for the purpose of being able to have more emotional experiences that we can then learn from, and to avoid repeating things. That's definitely not what the 40-second gate is about, is trying to avoid repetition. I want to experience something new. But it gets to the other end of the spectrum when it's not being honored properly. Okay, so anyone who has this has a sacral gate, and generators who have this sacral gate need to remember that that diversification is always subject to the sacral voice, the and what happens when we do not honor that voice in ourselves is we become too diversified. And when I saw this, I was like, oh shit, there's my problem. I am too diversified. Haha. And of course, in my case, it's happening because I have a 53rd gate activation, that beginnings. I want to begin so many things, but I don't actually have the energy or the knowledge or the wisdom for the true ending of them. So my diversification turns into decadence. That's what the word for it is. And I thought, okay, let me think of how I understand the concept of decadence. It's really about having too much. Having too much is what decadence is. And I realize that I have too much. I have a decadence because it's like I'm trying to plan for lots of different life paths ahead of me, right? Diversification. I'm trying to diversify. Oh, if I go into taking care of children, then I want all these toys and puzzles and games and things that children would love. Really cool antique, dollhouse, all these things. Oh, but if I'm only going to be a teacher, then I need these things. Oh, but if I'm going to go and run a cafe, then I need these things. Oh, but if I'm going to go and do social change, I need these things. Oh, but if I'm leaving Germany, I don't need any of these things. See? So it's about understanding the proper place of diversification and recognizing that diversification is under the control of that sacral motor, which has a voice. If we don't honor it, we are going to be led into a decadence, into a kind of frittering away of our sacral energy on things that don't matter. And really, another way of saying that is slavery. So this is about, let's have some other experiences, but you have to learn how to keep it in control, or you become a slave to something. In my case, a slave to belongings. Definitely. So additional experience, not repeats, decadence. Okay, so now we're ready to move on to our people energies, which begins with the moon. The moon starts off at 62, line 4. That is asceticism. 62 is the gate of attention to details. There. And line 4, asceticism, details expressed after periods of retreat and reflection. All right. When the moon is done with 62, it will move into 56. That is also up here on the other side. That's the storyteller's gate. This is the channel of the seeker. It's very much about curiosity, travel, seeing what's over the next hill, and of course speaking about it. And then we will move into 31. This is the gate of the alpha. So we will have some of this. I want to lead. I want to be in charge. I want to control things from a leadership perspective there, coming into our energetic stream. Our Mercury energy starts off at 44.4, but since we've already looked at that yesterday, that was leadership with sincerity and impartiality. Now it'll move into the 5th line, which is organization, the instinctive recognition of patterns. And of course, as I said, this is our personnel manager in our whole material lineup here. So this is the one who wants to make sure that the people as resources get properly placed, and this 5th line is the highest level of that. What we're really projecting onto that gate, what we want to see out of that gate, is the ability to recognize patterns and organize people so that those patterns can be productive, so they can bring in and actually get our needs met. All right, so our Venus energy starts off at 46, line 3. That is, of course, our gate of luck, serendipity, love of the body. Projection is line 3, determination to stay with what brings success. It will also move into the 4th line, which is being influential. Of course, that 4th line always does want to be influenced and talking and networking with others. Determination to stay with what brings success. No, that was 3. 4 is exerting influence through luck and purposefulness. All right. Our final people energy is 1, line 2, which we looked at yesterday, being ideals, expression conditioned by beauty and ideals. Of course, I started talking about this idea of the first gate as the most yang gate. It's the very essence of what it is to be creative, to be creating in the world. The second line, though, today does have a down arrow on it, which is the expression of the self is shaped by desire and passion, which limits the creative potential rather than being able to really live out its fullness, which requires ideally some sort of awareness of what's going on here in the 10 and the 57, where you really get to true aesthetic creations. That first gate will also move into the 3rd line, which is to keep things going, the need for expression independent of success. So that will be a very experimental energy with success through creativity on that first line. Our global energies are staying the same. We do not have internal connections, although today it is also possible to have a total of 6 first lines. So it's not the most I've ever seen. That would be 8 of any one given line on a day, but still, that is creating for sure a foundational kind of human who really, really wants to get to the bottom of a lot of issues and subjects. So, our song for today is Changes by David Bowie. He has a remastering of that done in 2015, but it is an old song. But you know what? It's still a goodie. And I looked him up, and he's like me. He does not have that 32, but he's a little bit focused on the 32 because he has the 54, the ambition. So he's concerned about these changes and what they're going to bring enough that he wrote a song about it. So that's very interesting. And by the way, for those of you who are interested, I did look up Lorena McKennitt, and she does have the gate of intuition really leading into and she has the whole flash of inspiration. She has everything in this channel, circuitry of empowerment, individuation. God, what's the word? Integration. There we go. Integration circuit, except for the 10. She doesn't have the 10. So that's, I think, what was a lot of, she's leaning into that intuition in her writing of her songs and in the depth of her lyrics. So I was fast talking so we can get through all this information, and there will be more tomorrow, of course, because tomorrow's another day with new activations. We'll be looking at line 2. Until then, take care. Ciao.